But Dad had grown up with bikes, and I think I mentioned that he'd taught himself, with Archie, taught themselves tricks on bicycles. They could sit on the handlebars and pedal backwards. They could sit on the front mudguard and hold the handlebars above and pedal backwards. They could balance for long minutes at a time in one position without losing balance and moving. They could ride standing on the seat. They could jump clean over the bike. You know, it was endless. And in the mid-30s, after the earthquake, Napier ran a series of new Napier carnivals. And Dad dressed his bike with streamers and rode in those parades, doing his tricks all the way through town and round McLean Park. And gosh, I was proud of my dad. I learned many Scottish words from him too. He never lost his accent either. Ears were always lugs. A nice day was braw or bonny. A grey, drizzly day was drich. Cold hands were little cold puddocks. Wee cold frogs, puddocks. And dinner fash yoursel was quite common. And where's the dishclout? The dishcloth. And you're no very gleg of the uptack. You're not very quick on the uptake. A cuddy, you wouldn't know what a cuddy is perhaps, but it was a sawhorse. The sawhorse was always a cuddy. And the garden fork was a grape, G-R-A-I-P. That's apparently a Norwegian word. And the gutter round the house was a roan, R-O-N-E. There were many of them. But I guess my Scottish roots are fairly deep. And like me, there would be thousands, probably millions of Scottish descendants dotted around the world. Mostly leaving Scotland because they were driven out by the invading English and wanted to emigrate or join the armed forces. One of the Highland clans that was driven out by the English onslaught were the MacGregors. And they not only lost their hereditary lands, they were forbidden to speak Gaelic, and they were forbidden to wear the kilt. The renegade Rob Roy MacGregor was hunted as an outlaw. This is their cry of anguish and despair. The moon's on the lake and the mist on the brae, and the clan has a name that is nameless by day. Our signal for fight, which from monarchs we drew, must be heard but by night in our vengeful halloo. Then halloo, 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 Gregolach. If they rob us or name, or pursue us with beagles, give their roofs to the flame, and their flesh to the eagles. Then gather, 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 while there's leaves in the forest and foam on the river. MacGregor, despite them, shall flourish forever. Glenorchy's proud mountains, called Churn and her towers, Glenstray and Glenlyon no longer are ours. We're landless, 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 Gregolach, landless, landless, landless. Through the depths of Loch Catron the steed shall career, o'er the peak of Ben Lomond the galley shall steer, and the rocks of Craig Royston like icicles melt, ere our wrongs be forgot or our vengeance unfelt. Then halloo, 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 Gregorlach. If they rob us or name or pursue us with beagles, give their roofs to the flame and their flesh to the eagles. Then gather, 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 while there's leaves in the forest and foam on the river. MacGregor, despite them, shall flourish forever. Not all Scots are doer, you know. They've had a long history of comedians. I suppose the latest of them would be Billy Connolly, love or not. But I guess the Scots have a homeland that they appreciate, and bonny lassies, which Robert Burns wrote about so wonderfully well in many of his songs. On my OE, I spent 3 days in Ayrshire, his home territory, looking up his various homes that he'd lived in, the farms he'd worked on, and even sitting in his chair at Pussy Nancy's, which was one of his watering holes. But I couldn't help wondering how a simple ploughman could conjure up such wonderful, magical words. And then I realized, of course, he wasn't simple at all. He in his youth, he soaked up his classical education like a sponge and used it all through his life later on. He wrote some lovely songs, and here's one love song which we can put down to Robert Burns. Oh, my love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love is like a melody that's sweetly played in tune. So fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry, till all the seas gang dry, my dear, till all the seas gang dry, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry.